Matthew Berry, since you have been at NBC Sports and Peacock for all of 1 week, whereas I have been here for 2 years now, I guess that makes me the Derek Carr, you the Devontae Adams of this here Fantasy Connection. You are the marquee acquisition for this team this offseason. Welcome, my friend, to NBC Sports and Peacock.
Thank you, Michael. It is good to be here. I'm not being paid like Devontae Adams, but I certainly appreciate the comparison. Thrilled to be here. Really excited. I think it's actually an apt comparison in this one particular instance, which is, I think a lot of people were very surprised when Adams left Green Bay. They're like, "Whoa, wait, you're Devontae Adams. Look, you play with Aaron Rodgers. You've been there forever. You've had tons of success in Green Bay, and now you're leaving, to go to your college quarterback, to go to Las Vegas. You're leaving the Packers and Aaron Rodgers. You're leaving 12." And I think that was somewhat of the reaction when I announced I was leaving ESPN. People were like, "Well, wait, you're leaving ESPN? Like, where the hell are you going?" I think people were really surprised as well. But I think when people saw me pop up on Football Night in America, they were like, "Oh, I get it.
Oh,
okay, now I get it. Now."
Yeah.
So I did feel a little bit of, really? You sure? Everything okay? That Adam, he announced he was leaving Green Bay, saying that I got, or that he wasn't going to resign with Green Bay, whatever, blah, 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 that I announced when I was leaving ESPN. And shout out to the fact that I haven't been fired in a week, that I've made it a week, I mean, on Football Night in America.
I think that salary cap hit might hurt.
Right. And by the way, I was just, I'm in front of 10 million people, last Thursday night talking about fantasy and mentioning that I had Jalen Hurts as a top 5 quarterback. And you're like, is he getting yanked? Is that, or is it, because that's one of those shows, Michael, that the big bosses watches, I was worried that what would happen is I get on there and then, one of the big bosses is like, "Wait, we hired who? Where? How did I miss that email? Hold on, hang on, what?" So being here a week later is very exciting.
Well, going back to the Carr Adams thing, I mean, I'd like to think that you and we both spent 15 years at ESPN. We overlapped.
Yep.
We overlapped. We started Numbers Never Lie together. We spent a season doing fantasy football now together. I'd like to think we connected for 38 touchdowns in 2 years at ESPN. We were a prolific combination when we played together. So there's some instant chemistry that exists here. We're gonna hit the ground running here.
No, 100%. I have a couple of questions though for you, because you and I have known each other a long, long time. To your point, right? You and I started Numbers Never Lie together. We also, right? You said we spent the year together on Fantasy Football Now with you as a host, me as an analyst. But more importantly than that, I think what people don't realize is that you and I have competed head to head intensely in the famed War Room League for many, many years. I showed Matt Casey, our producer, the text strings of hours. Michael, you and I would spend hours on trades going back and forth. You are an insanely tough negotiator, a frustrating negotiator, but a shrewd one. And so our friendship dates way before people ever saw us on air together. So I have a question for you. So again, I don't know how long we've known each other, 12 years, 13 years, something like that, right? It's up there. It's up there.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a phone number from you. Matt Casey put us on a text chain together. Like, "Who's this?" And he's like, "Michael." And I'm like, "Yeah, I have a 617 number for Michael. What's this 310?" And you're like, "Oh, I got 2 phones." All right, Hollywood, why do you need 2 phones?
Well, I don't live in LA.
I got another question. Am I on the bat phone, or am I on the important phone? Am I on main phone, or am I like the bat phone, whatever? I didn't realize, because you have a 2-phone system. I'm one phone. I'm a 1-phone guy.
Yeah. No, I know that's pretty pretentious on my part. Okay, so the quick story is if you have the 617 number, I've known you forever. I've had that number since 2001. So you a day one Michael Smith guy.
Right.
You got the 617 number. The 310 number, I got it because I was in California and being shamed for having an Android and the green bubble thing. And people with iPhones just act like people with Androids are like, we should be banished to another planet or something like that. So I just broke down and got an iPhone. So now I got two numbers. And you got both numbers. They're both equally important. But see, it's that kind of background. It's that kind of chemistry that made me so excited to reunite with me. So the reason why we're doing this little sneak preview, if you will, is you and I will be reuniting together, connecting for touchdown passes, first on the Rotoworld Draft Guide show, which is going to air next Wednesday, August 17th at 8 p.m. Eastern on Peacock. Rotoworld Draft Guide show coming to you next Wednesday. And on Sundays this fall, from 11 to 1, fantasy football pregame with the two of us kicking it, setting the table as you set your lineups. I mean, it feels like just such a natural full circle moment for us. But before we get into fantasy, I do want to do one more thing about reality, and then we'll do a little sneak preview of Wednesday's Draft Guide show. Again, you and I both spent 15 years at ESPN. I know what it's like to leave the nest, if you will. You became a household name in those 15 years. You're obviously coming home to Rotoworld, so it's definitely a full circle for you personally, talented Mr. Roto. But I just love to know as best you can. Take me inside this process, how you're processing the move. I know I can tell you this. I'll tell you what to expect. For the next 15 years, people will still tell you they love you on ESPN. It's going to be a hard habit to break. I don't know if you're still saying Matthew Berry from ESPN only a week into your new adventure with NBC Sports and Peacock.
Well, all sorts of things. I'll answer that first part. That's definitely still happening. I'm sure I will screw up and say that on air. There have been times where I've said like, it's like I was just talking to ESPN, NBC. So I've done that. I've also talking to old friends of mine, because I made lifelong friends at ESPN. And so I'll say stuff like, I can't believe we are, I can't believe you guys are, like I still say the we sometimes, even though I'm no longer part of that team. Look, the answer to that question is, Michael, and I'm glad you mentioned coming home. So for a lot of people aren't aware of this, but I started my career at Rotoworld. 1999. I wrote a fantasy basketball column in December of 1999. It's my very first thing for the company. And I spent almost 5 years at the company, leaving in 2004 to start my own site, to start talentedmrroto.com. And I still, even when I left Rotoworld to start talentedmrroto.com, I still had a deal with Rotoworld where my column would appear on Rotoworld and they would link back to my site and we shared content. So I've been associated with Rotoworld since from 1999 till 2007, which is when I joined ESPN full time. So it is a homecoming for me. It is a full circle moment for me. And look, I wasn't looking to leave ESPN. I have nothing bad to say about the place. The reason anyone gives a blank about me is because of those 4 letters, and I'm proud of everything we accomplished there. But what I would tell you is that there were 2 things that were super important to me, which is, obviously you want to be paid, paid as much as you can get, right? We all want to make as much money as possible. And it was very comparable in terms of what ESPN offered me to stay. And ESPN offered me a 3-year extension, very nice raise, God bless. NBC also made a very generous offer. So the money was basically equal. For me, it came down to 2 things. Entrepreneurial. I have an entrepreneurial spirit, Michael, and you and I have talked about this. You do as well. I think it's what we get along so well is you and I like to have, you and I both like to stay busy. We both like to keep our fingers in a lot of pies. We've had these conversations many times over the years. So I wanted to continue. For me, it's my fantasy life stuff, my fantasylife.com stuff that I'm doing around that. So the Fantasy Life newsletter and the Fantasy Life app, those kind of things. I wanted to be able to keep doing that and building those businesses. And it also was super important to me to be a part of NFL coverage. I've always tried to push the ball forward in terms of fantasy analysis, in terms of breaking through and making fantasy. I believe that when you're talking fantasy, you're talking NFL. All it is you're just talking ball.
100%.
You're just talking
100%.
You're just talking ball. Different prism, but it's the same thing, and it's the same conversation, whether it's sports betting or fantasy or whatever. And at ESPN, because ESPN is owned by Disney and because of corporate, that company is set up, the entrepreneurial stuff wasn't going to be allowed. I could return to ESPN, but I would have had to give up. It doesn't work. And I just wasn't going to be a part of NFL coverage there. It's again, no disrespect. That's how they've set their company up. And let's be clear, they've done really, really well over the years. So, it's worked for them. It's important to me to be a part of NFL coverage, to have fantasy truly be aligned. And so when it came to me and said, we're going to put you on Football Night in America, we're going to put you on the number one studio show in all of America, the second highest rated show in all of television. The only show that's higher rated than Football Night in America is the actual game of Sunday Night Football. Right. So we're going to put you on. You're not going to be like some asterisk. You are a cast member of Football Night in America. They said that to me. And they said, and we'll bring Rotoworld back. And keep your side hustles. It was a hard decision, but it wasn't, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It was a hard decision.
Total sense.
15 years. People, but also it was a little bit of a no-brainer for me. And so, could not be worth. And, it's been for me that in addition to everyone being so welcoming and so gracious, but, whether it's you or Mike Tirico or Maria Taylor, it has been nice to see a bunch of faces and friends from my days at ESPN as well. So it's been awesome, man. I was 1 weekend, but I'm thrilled. Couldn't be happier to be here.
Well, I couldn't be happier for you. And I know it was a tough decision for you, but when they said, and you get to work with Michael Smith, he's like, oh, that settles it. I'm here. I'm coming to NBC now. But no, in all seriousness, it was very, very appropriate that your debut was at the Hall of Fame game in Canton, because you, my friend, are definitely a football Hall of Famer. No qualifier, no fantasy qualifier there. So great to see you on Football Night in America as well. And again, this is a sneak preview. We'll get to a few fantasy things. We don't want to steal our own thunder. We want to give you guys a reason to tune in at 8 p.m. Eastern on Peacock next Wednesday, August 17th, for the Rotoworld Fantasy Draft Guide Show. Go ahead, Matthew.
I was just going to say, and it's not just for people who are like, I kind of tolerate the two of you, but is it just you? No. It's going to be Michael and myself and a cast of thousands. A lot of people that you know from NBC and Rotoworld that you love and respect, football analysts, insiders, fantasy experts, some friends of ours as well, some guests. So I would say that for not only the Rotoworld Draft Guide Show, but also for Fantasy Football Tailgate. I believe that's the first time we've announced that name. So I'm excited about that on Sunday mornings. It'll be Michael and myself and a lot of smart, great guests as well. It'll be a full 2 hours on Sunday mornings. And the Draft Guide Show is going to be chock full of fantasy goodness.
All right. So enough of the love fest. I love you. America loves you. Let's get into why they're here, which is fantasy football. Why you do what you do, which is fantasy football. So from a macro standpoint, I'll just ask you quite simply, like, okay, I'm joining you from lovely Martha's Vineyard. I've been on vacation. I haven't exactly, I haven't gotten into draft mode yet, Matthew. I've been thinking about it, and I'm really just starting to buckle down and get ready for my fantasy draft. What is your overall? By the way,
wait, can I just as I'm in my bedroom, can we just take a moment here to acknowledge the Michael Two Phone Smith flex of being in Martha's Vineyard, spending that Amazon money already? Look at you already. Look, that's nice. Already, that's good. That's fine. I get it.
Not bad.
I get it.
Not
let
bad.
America,
not
let
bad.
America know how the other half lives. I see you. I feel you.
No,
okay.
Matthew.
All right.
No, Matthew. Yeah. This isn't Amazon money. This is leftover money from my winnings of the aforementioned War Room League that I dominated. You left that part out. I've won enough fantasy money in my day to send me to Martha's Vineyard.
You and I are both former champions. Champions of that league. Two-time. You're a two-timer. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
A two-timer.
Okay.
I lost in the finals a couple of times.
in a league that we both got kicked out of, because once you're out of the family, you're out of the family. But that's neither here nor there. Okay,
correct.
So back to the draft. What is your overall draft philosophy, your draft manifesto heading into the 2022 season?
Look, it's a little bit of a cliche, but I go back to the Will Ferrell. I go back to Days of Thunder. If you're not Days of Thunder, sorry, I go back to Ricky Bobby, right? And
Ricky Bobby, yeah,
which is
Talladega Nights.
If you're Talladega Nights, thank you. If you're not first, you're last, right? And so I think generally speaking, early on, you want to go safe. First 2 rounds, I always say, you can't win your league in the first 2 rounds. You can lose it, right? So you want to make sure you don't want to be reaching too much in the first 2 rounds. But after that, I think it's about upside. The way you win your league is with the Cooper Kupps of the world, with the Jonathan Taylors of the world. You win your league with the Jalen Waddles down the stretch, those guys, right? You win your league by picking up Devontae Freeman off the waiver wire, and using him for a couple of weeks to get you through an injury spot. Like, that's how you win your league. And so for me, it is, again, I think a little bit of going safe early, but then it is swinging for the fences. Because, again, no one remembers second except for me, like where I'm just like, oh, yeah, a couple of times that I finished second in the War Room League, which, still rankles me.
Yeah. You mentioned a couple of big names. You mentioned a couple of big names, and Jonathan Taylor and Cooper Kupp that won a lot of leagues last year. Who is the player or players that you get asked about the most heading into the 2022 season? Who's got the most buzz around them going into this year?
Well, I mean, the biggest question I get is, who's my fantasy ride or die? Last year was Austin Eckler. Everyone had him as a 2nd-round pick, and I'm like, guys, he's going to be a top 5 fantasy running back this year. And everyone called me crazy, and then what happened? He was a top 5
20
fantasy running back.
touchdowns later. Yep.
Yeah, they're like, they're not going to use him at the goal line. Didn't get to the goal line. I'm like, they got Joe Lombardi's their new. They're going to use him like Alvin Kamara, guys. They're going to use him like Alvin Kamara anyway. So I get a lot of questions. Who's my fantasy ride or die? I'm going to announce that on the Rotoworld Draft Guide show Wednesday, August 17th, 8 p.m. on Peacock. He said I am already a company man. But I think there's a lot of questions coming up. Like, so on Football Night in America, I mentioned that I had Jalen Hurts as a top 4 fantasy quarterback. People are asking me about Jalen Hurts. We get a lot of questions about some of the sleeper quarterbacks. Do you like Trey Lance? Do you like Trevor Lawrence? Do you like Justin Fields? Those guys come up. And then I think for me, it's also the unsettled situations. Kansas City's a true enigma, right? With Tyreek Hill gone, is it Juju? Is it MVS? Is it Mecole Hardman? Who's going to be the starting running back? Are we believing once again in Ronald Jones or Clyde Edwards-Helaire? What about Jerick McKinnon? Sky Moore is getting a lot of buzz in that camp. What about Isaiah Pacheco, the running back? So I get a lot of questions about Kansas City. And the other big question I get, and let's talk this through, is who's this year's Cincinnati? Who's this year's kind of an offense is going to, like, we know the Buccaneers are going to be a really good offense, right? We know the Packers are going to be a really good offense. Like, there's a couple offenses that we already know. Kansas City, right? The Chargers we expect to be a very good offense, right?
Proven commodities,
Proven commodities. So let's talk through some of this. So here's some. Look, I think the Chargers can take another step. I think Indianapolis with Matt Ryan under center in that offensive line, I think they're really interesting, right? I mean, think about what Matt Ryan has done as a QB for wide receiver, whether it's Calvin Ridley, whether it's Julio Jones. Like, over the years, Matt Ryan has always been able to support at least one very fantasy relevant wide receiver, one top 15 guy. And so I think Michael Pittman might be a little underrated this year because we know he's going to get a tremendous target share. So I think that's a very interesting offense. I'm high on Philadelphia this year, again, starting with Jalen Hurts and the addition of A.J. Brown, second year of Devontae Smith, second year of the Sirianni offense, and a great offensive line and a pretty good schedule. I'll give you 2 sort of sleeper offenses that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about. Number one is Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the Vikings.
Kevin O'Connell.
Kevin O'Connell and Wes Phillips, coming from Sean McVay, coming from a pass-first offense. Like, we know the Vikings put up numbers. Kirk Cousins was a top 12 fantasy quarterback last year. Obviously, Justin Jefferson was awesome. Dalvin Cook was awesome. Adam Thielen had his moments when he was healthy. So when we saw KJ Osborne emerge, well, all those guys are back, plus a healthy Irv Smith. And they did all that last year, Michael, under Mike Zimmer, who's a defensive coach, but conservative in nature. They were bottom 14 in the NFL. They were bottom 14 in the NFL in passing rate. The Vikings were. And now here comes O'Connell. Here comes Wes Phillips. They're going to throw. That's an offense that's going to air it out. And I think they have better weapons than people realize. Again, with Osborne as a third and Irv Smith, and of course the running backs as well. Look, no one ever gets excited about Kirk Cousins, but he's absolutely solid. And I think that's a sneaky offense that I think is going to score a lot more points than people realize. And I'll also say the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jacksonville Jaguars, it's a ridiculously easy schedule. Everyone, you want to bag on the Jaguars. Okay, I hear you. I get it. It's a franchise that has certainly struggled for a long time. But what is Doug Peterson? Doug Peterson is a former NFL quarterback who came out of the Andy Reid system. He's a pass-first guy. He got an MVP year out of Carson Wentz. And I know, Frank Reich is the guy that always gets the credit. Oh, it was Frank Reich. But then you look at Carson Wentz last year in Indianapolis under Frank Reich, and you're like, maybe it was Doug Peterson. At any rate, I just think Doug Peterson, former NFL quarterback, former very successful head coach, nowhere to go but up. There's a reason why Trevor Lawrence in 1 year didn't forget how to play football.
Yeah.
This is a guy that coming out of college he's the next Andrew Luck. He's the next Peyton Manning. He's the most NFL-ready prospect to come out of college in the last 20 years, right? He's that guy. And the whole offense was a mess, and Urban Meyer, is bad a coach, is bad a fit, and, whatever. We don't need to beat that horse. But the fact is that under Doug Peterson, and they've given him some weapons, right? So you've got Marvin Jones, but they added Christian Kirk, they added Zay Jones, they added Evan Ingram, they've improved that offensive line. I'm a Commanders fan, so Brandon Scherf down there, he's going to help anchor that line. I don't know. Trevor, I think, and by the way, I think the offense is still going to be crappy. Getting Travis Etienne back as well, healthy. I don't know. I think the Jags are going to be a sneaky good offense, at least for fantasy purposes, because I think they're going to have to throw a lot. A, it'll be their offensive philosophy, and B, just because of the nature of the game, and their defense is going to be bad again this year, or will struggle, I think, in some way.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's a lot of good information there. One, look forward to finding out who your real ride or die is, because it sounds like you're really riding with Jalen Hurts. I'd love to hear who you're riding or dying with more than Jalen Hurts at this point. The second part of all that is you love just getting a piece of good offenses, whether you can get a Justin Jefferson or not. Like, let's say you get a Kirk Cousins. Let's say you're thinking about, taking a Josh Allen or a Lamar Jackson early. Maybe you think twice and say, let me get another solid wide receiver or running back or tight end even here and wait on a Kirk Cousins. That could still win you your league. And as far as Jacksonville goes, you had as much playing time as their stars, so we're still looking forward to seeing what they do this preseason, if the Doug Peterson effect ends up manifesting itself early on or not. Did you have anything else before we moved on? Because I was going to ask you about this first full weekend of preseason action. You had something else you wanted to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I know, and Jacksonville looked terrible in the preseason game against, I think they were going, purposely fairly vanilla, at least especially in that game. And so, there's definitely stuff that you can take away from the preseason, but there's also, you don't want to overreact too much to the preseason. Yeah. We'll talk about preseason here in a second. What I would say, what's really interesting is some of the young wide receivers as well. We talk about sort of questions. I'm all in on Gabriel Davis. He's a very polarizing player in fantasy circles. Half the fantasy industry believes he is overhyped. The other half is sort of like, it's Gabe Davis season. I'm among the believers that it is Gabe Davis season. You know?
Yeah, no, me too.
I wrote a column on Rotoworld.com, NBCSportsEdge.com called 100 Facts, okay? 100 Facts. And I'll give you a couple of facts that I think are pretty interesting about Gabriel Davis, right? Think about this, okay? Last year, he was 98th. He was 98th in targets. Like, that's low, right? 98th in targets. And yet, despite that, and he had 11 different games. Sorry. Hang on. Gabe Davis, 98th in targets last year, 11 different games where he ran fewer than 20 routes. And yet still top 5 in the NFL among wide receivers in end zone targets. When they got him close, despite the fact they had Emmanuel Sanders and Cole Beasley and Stephon Diggs and Dawson Knox, he was still looking for Gabriel Davis. There were only 5 games last year, Michael. And there were only 5 games last year in which Gabe Davis saw at least 5 targets. He scored in 4 of them. And now Emmanuel Sanders is gone. Cole Beasley is gone. Gabriel Davis had another year in the NFL. By the way, still just 23 years old. And it's his 3rd year in the NFL, I believe. So, yes, they added Jamison Crowder, and we expect a bigger role for Isaiah McKenzie. But make no mistake, this is going to be one of, if not the best offenses in football. We know about Allen Diggs, but Gabe Davis is coming. And you saw it in that playoff game against the Chiefs with the 4 touchdowns. Like, I ain't saying he's getting 4 touchdowns every game. What I'm saying is that wasn't a fluke either. That wasn't a fluke.
Yeah.
I mean, just look at those numbers there on the screen, right? 35 for 549, 6 touchdowns. He was 98th in targets. There were 97 other receivers that got more targets than Gabe Davis. 98th in targets, and he put up, almost over 500 yards. And I don't know. I'm in on Gabe Davis in a big way this year.
Same. Yeah, no. And listen, only one team's going to get Josh Allen, but give me anybody that's catching Josh Allen passes. That might be an oversimplification. I just like having pieces of great offenses, to your point about these up-and-coming offenses like Minnesota and Jacksonville that could produce some, as you say, fantasy goodness across the board. All right, so before we wrap this up, let's kind of like turn the page to the first full weekend of preseason. It is Thursday, August 11th. So we get some preseason action tonight, Friday, Saturday. Who are you looking forward to seeing in action, provided they get, somewhat meaningful playing time or aren't a healthy scratch? But who are you looking forward to seeing? Maybe it's a new face in a new place, to stick with this theme of you being at NBC Sports and Peacock now. Who are you looking forward to seeing this weekend?
It's a great question. Ideally, what you're hoping for is a couple of things. You're hoping for some clarity. It's all small sample size, so you're sort of having to read the tea leaves here, but some clarity on roles that we're curious about, right? Like Miami. Miami's a fascinating team this year. Now, again, does Tua play? Does Tyreek play? Probably not. We'll see. But can we get some clarity on the running backs? So you've got Chase Edmonds, who got the big deal to come over, but then you've got Raheem Mostert, who I love. When healthy, Raheem Mostert can play. And obviously reunited, Mike McDaniel coming over from San Francisco, his former running back. And so they've also got Sony Michel in the house there. So how that running back situation shakes out, that's pretty interesting to me in Miami, and what the usage is there. We talked about Kansas City already. You're hearing a lot of buzz about guys like Sky Moore. Do you see anything there? Would love to get some look at the Dallas offense beyond the obvious guys. Right. So like Jalen Tolbert, somebody that I'm really excited about, the rookie wide receiver. Do we see him? Because again, no Cedric Wilson, no Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup banged up. So somebody's going to catch passes besides CeeDee Lamb in that offense. Who is it? I'm putting my money on Tolbert at the moment, but I think it's interesting. So that's what you're hoping for, is can you get some clarity on some stuff? I think a lot of people, we back to that Thursday night game, the Hall of Fame game, and it raised a lot of eyebrows that Josh Jacobs got no Derek Carr, no Devontae Adams, but Josh Jacobs is getting carries the first 2 series. And you're kind of like, first game of the preseason and he's getting this much work. Like, you know, I think that certainly raised some eyebrows in terms of, so it's Michael, it's not just usage, but it's, you know, do they get used, and, you know, and how do they get used? Who are they on the field with? So, I mean, like, do you feel better or worse about Josh Jacobs after seeing him with, in essence, the second team last week?
Yeah.
I feel worse.
Listen, I mean, his head coach made me feel worse the moment he got hired. I like Josh McDaniels a lot as a coach and as an offensive mind, but we know the running back games that he played for a lot of years in New England. So, you know, you can't. I don't know if you can count on any Raiders running back to be a bell cow week in or week out.
Yeah, and to that point, by the way, there's rumors that perhaps speaking of Patriots running backs, that Damian Harris is on the trade block. And so that's pretty interesting, because I love Ramondre Stevenson. I think a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And if Damian Harris were, for whatever reason, no longer on the Patriots, Ramondre Stevenson would be a top 20 fantasy running back. Like, that's gonna be a run first offense once again. He's a true 3-down back. They've got other guys there, I get it, but Stevenson is great. And so for whatever reason, Damian Harris was on his way out. That's pretty interesting. So to that end, like, when the Patriots play, does Damian Harris suddenly get a lot of run early on as sort of a trade
showcase him? Yeah.
So I think, you know, those are all the things you're looking for. And also just, you know, do you get some rookies? Like, do we get to see Trubisky at all? I mean, not Trubisky. Do we get to see Kenny Pickett at all? Right? Do we get to see some of these rookies? Do we, you know, even if Aaron Rodgers isn't out there, and he won't be, but what does Christian Watson do? Right? You know, what do some of the rookies do? That's always interesting to see.
Well, man, I think we should leave it there, because there's no shortage of storylines, even though, like you said, you don't want to overreact to, you know, first full weekend of preseason. But I mean, nonetheless, there's going to be plenty to unpack after we see, you know, these teams in action for the first time. You are no rookie. I'm no rookie. It's great to be reunited with you, man. This is just a glimpse of what we're going to be bringing to the Rotoworld Draft Guide Show this coming Wednesday, August 17th, 8 p.m. on Peacock, and every Sunday, helping you set your lineups for fantasy football, helping you win your league. We're not, like you said, we're not trying to help you set your. We're not playing for fun. Okay, we're not playing for second. We're trying to help you win week in and week out and win your league. Matthew Berry, welcome aboard, my friend. It's good to be reunited with you, man. Looking forward to working with you again. And happy for you, man. And let's have some fun.
I appreciate it, Michael. Thanks so much, man. This is going to be great.
All right, man. Talk to you later.
Hey, thanks for watching Brother from Another on YouTube. Make sure you hit subscribe before you leave, and be sure to watch us 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Peacock. Appreciate you.